this experience of going in front of your team and saying, hey guys, we fucked up. We cannot pay your salaries anymore.
Pretty brutal. This is the most in-demand thing that I hear.
The peace of mind having 5 million in the bank to go a little bit more aggressive.
When did that shift started happening?
We had to learn a ton in order to really get to the point where we are today. The idea itself is worthless. The execution is everything, and execution needs more than one player, in my opinion.
You had like Tim Cook visit the office.
Tim Cook was also a surprise for us.
A question that is super necessary considering who you are.
Your brain is not a storage device, it's a thinking device.
Hi there and welcome to a new episode of Impact Talks. Today we have the co-founder and managing director at Blinkist, Niklas Jansen, with us. Blinkist is pretty well known. A lot of my team uses it. But Niklas, I'd love to know from you what Blinkist is and how you started this journey.
Simply put, Blinkist is a product that offers you the key insights from the world's best nonfiction books, and since yesterday also from podcasts.
Can you kind of shed a light of how it all started? Were you always an entrepreneur, or was it just like you hopped on the idea and it just worked?
So I studied business, and I always say the reason I studied business is because after school I didn't really know what to do with my life. And I felt business is the subject where I have to make no commitment today what I want to do later. The second or third year in university we started our first company as students. That was really when I got hooked on entrepreneurship. So I think from that moment on I knew that I want to do something on the entrepreneurship side for the rest of my life. After university we were pretty clear we want to start another company together, but we lacked this idea that we were fully passionate about. And for me it's very, very important that I'm 100% passionate about what I do. So I reconnected with Holger, another friend from university, and we started brainstorming ideas of businesses we could start. So this is now then coming to your question, how did it all start? Is really the observation that we made that we all shared one problem, and the problem we shared was not being able to read books anymore. And working full time, it was just very hard to still find time and motivation to read a book. Young and naive as we were back then, we thought, okay, if we have that problem, then anyone else must have the problem too. In 2011, 2012, there was a big change happening. People started reading on their mobile phones. So we saw this problem, we saw this change in behaviors, and we just brought these two things together, and this was really the initial idea for Blinkist. We didn't know what to expect, and then of course the first years were pretty tough, and we had to learn a ton in order to really get to the point where we are today.
What was the mindset going involving so many people, and how is it like to have so many co-founders?
Somehow it just felt right to start a company with the 3 people. To be honest, I didn't really think about how many co-founders should we have or what is a good size of a founding team. What we noticed is that we want to build a digital product. We were pretty clear that we need to build an app. We knew in order to get an app to the market, we need a technical co-founder. And that is then how we ended up being 4, because then we searched for the technical co-founder who then later joined the team.
How could you trust it? Because another question that keeps popping up as well is, if they find a technical co-founder, what if they run away with the idea? Because technically they can execute the whole thing. So how do you avoid that nightmare, and how did you guys handle the whole search of it?
We basically tried to write a job description of what this technical co-founder should be, and how we met him or how we found him was he was the former roommate of my co-founder's back then girlfriend, now wife's sister. So pretty random. And she said, I used to live with this guy. I think he studied computer science in school. You want to meet him? We all met in Frankfurt in Germany, because that was pretty much in the middle of everyone. And to be honest, back then it was much more we felt we want to convince him rather than we are afraid that he would run away with the idea or something. We're pretty confident that no one can just run away with the idea, because it also includes a content play. And I always believed in this the synergy of skills. He has the technical chops, but we know about marketing, we know about content, we know about products. So only together we can build something really, really valuable. And the Mark Zuckerberg example, of course, is maybe one of the very few examples where one person was able to execute everything. But normally I'm not that afraid of someone just stealing the idea, because the idea itself is worthless. The execution is everything, and execution needs more than one player, in my opinion. Also, to be honest, we haven't really found a good way to transfer this to the digital world. We're still trying to figure out how to allow the team to connect in a more remote setup as long as Corona, or as long as the pandemic is going on.
I can share some tips. We were
sure.
Moving away. So what we noticed is the office was not necessary, but conference rooms were. So very, very small studio space we kept. And then a bunch of conference rooms. I think in our office there's 30 plus conference rooms that we share with other companies as well. That allows us to keep growing without too much effort, but yet scale down all the other kind of costs. And then those costs could be then reinvested into more remote stuff. The instinct was, oh no, how do we keep the event business alive? Whereas for me, it was very much like it's going to be really stupid to go really fast right now. I know, for instance, at Apple, they don't release right away. They release when they know all the bugs are kind of out and that the product's going to be great. I kind of realized, okay, it's not going to be smart to go really fast, do events and half-ass it. It's going to be much smarter if we realize what's going to be unique in this new environment, because whatever we build now will last us for the next 10 years. When was the first time you started actually making sales? How was that experience? And then when was the decision made to really go for a seed investment or a Series A investment? When that amount of money came on the bank, how did that change?
So we made revenue pretty quickly. So I think I said earlier, we had this plan of launching within 6 months. And one big hypothesis we had is we need to prove willingness to pay from day one. We always had this idea, if we want to build a successful content product, we need to prove that people are willing to pay for it. We really thought we were just gonna explode, because we believed, hey, we have this problem, everyone else is gonna have this problem. People are just gonna buy this product. All we have to do is just put it out. I think it took us 11 months to get from these 5 to 100 customers. So that was a really, really, really slow journey. And so yeah, you can imagine for the first year, the revenue was like in the thousands maybe. So there was not much revenue coming in. But luckily, like I said earlier, we found this kind of seed investor who believed in the idea, who believed in the team. So they financed the first 1.5 years. And then things slowly started growing. So we raised another round of seed investment. Then in 2015, I think it was, there was the third year of Blinkist. We started cracking it, starting understanding how we can grow the business. Then we could really kind of put the foot on the gas pedal, started scaling. And since then have been growing really fast over the last few years.
What happened that you cracked it?
I think it was 2 things that cracked it, and one was product and the other one was marketing. So the product thing that cracked it was audio. We very early on learned, especially from American users, that they loved the concept, but they wanted to have audio because they spend a lot of time in cars, and so the only time I can read or listen to something these days is when I drive. And then I think it made the product more valuable, and it opened up the product to a new market segment with audio. So that was the first thing that cracked it. And the second thing that cracked it was just understanding how paid marketing works. So for 2 years we just were doing it in a very unstructured way. But then we started collecting data, being more structured, being more thoughtful of how we want to do it, measuring results, and then over thousands or hundreds of small iterations got to a point where we were able to acquire customers through paid marketing. And I think then we had this product that was ready to be sold, that was ready to scale. And we started having a marketing channel and finding the right people for our product. And this is really, I think these 3 things together cracked it then. It was this moment where we saw every week we would spend more on marketing, and every week we would get more out of that spend. So we becoming more efficient week over week. And that was really when the machine started working. And I was okay, we just need to raise more money to put more money into the machine to start to grow even faster.
A lot of marketing people probably listening and thinking, what was the budget that you put into it to figure it out? And how many iterations of these ads were you doing, and which platforms? I'm assuming Facebook or Google? Or...
It was a product that a category that didn't exist 5 years ago. So no one would go on Google to search for that. So we needed to have a push channel, and that was Facebook. Overall, we probably never spent more than 200,000 euros on the whole journey to get to the scalable points. Paid marketing is really, it's a numbers game, an iteration game. So you have to always keep trying. It's you have the creative, you have the audience, you have different bidding systems, finding the right combination of all these things. And then you have an onboarding and conversion flow in your product. And at some point it just worked. And it's very hard to say it was 5 or 10, but it was definitely a lot. He said, you know what, it's not so much about balancing your work and your private life. It's much more about balancing positive and negative energy. And there's an exercise I just recently did. It's just my return on energy matrix. And it's just a very simple two field matrix. And on the one side, you look what gives me energy and what drains energy. And on the other side, you look what is critical and what's not critical. And then you just fill out this matrix, and you quickly see what are things that are critical and that give you energy, and what are things that are critical and don't give you energy or drain energy. And what I then try to do is just organize my life and my work more around these things that give me energy, and try to do less of the things that drain energy, delegate them, or then just really be disciplined about these things and not really let them slip, because that is then also drains even more energy. If you could just keep pushing a task ahead of you that you don't want to do, then it's even more energy draining.
Yeah. You had like Tim Cook visit the office. You've had collaborations with Seth Godin.
It's literally just an email saying, hey, how about doing something together? And so right now it fits for me, so why not? Like, I think the answer to your question is like really, it's just like, I think it's the outcome of a lot of work that we have done, being really focused on building a product and growing the brand, instead of like trying to kind of go after these people and convince them. Tim Cook was also a surprise for us. He chose to come to us. No, we didn't invite him. Of course, we would have invited him if we knew he was in Berlin. But it was just like a week before. It's like, hey, someone is coming to visit you. Make sure you're in the office that day. And then Tim Cook showed up. So that was a pretty cool surprise.
Was it like from the Berlin startup community, like the city government or something that...
I think it was Apple arranging that. So I think what Tim Cook is doing, what I believe he's doing, is he's coming to Germany once a year. And every time he comes to Germany, he visits one company, one developer. And last year he came to our office.
Oh wow!
And that was really, really cool. So yeah, like I think the answer to your question is like really, it's just like, I think it's the outcome of a lot of work that we have done, being really focused on building a product and growing the brand, instead of like trying to kind of go after these people and convince them.
We're actually starting to get close to wrapping up, but we have a segment on this show that we call the crash and burn segment. So these are about your failures, the biggest failures that you learned the most from. Are there any that pop up that you're like, yeah, I got one of the biggest learning lessons from that?
I think we ran out of money twice at Blinkist, or nearly ran out of money. And it was always something that kind of like started slowly and then happened very suddenly. And I think we never really kind of like, in the first place, we didn't really manage our finances that well. We were like too optimistic. We still kept investing, although we were running out of money. And I think twice we got pretty lucky that the team was supportive and they would kind of like, they would give up the salaries for a while so that we could get through. And in the end, we would find a way to like get some more money. I think it was like twice a big failure from my side as well, like not really managing the company properly and leading us into situations where we were not in control anymore, but we pretty much needed to get lucky in order to survive. Being in control is so important for us these days. We prioritize this above everything else. We never want to again be in a situation where we need to get lucky in order to survive.
So that's what you learned, pretty much being as close as possible to the cash and really control everything there?
So like just like being, I think kind of like finding the right balance between taking risks but also being a little bit more conservative on when it comes to the balance sheet.
A question that is super necessary considering who you are. What books are you reading? What books are impacting you the most?
My kind of like passion for nonfiction books, it started with getting things done. I read this as a student, and like until then, it never occurred to me that there is a way to kind of like organize yourself and to manage productivity. Until then, I thought it's just like, okay, just like you put stuff on your paper and you forget about everything. So getting things done was really a game changer for me and my personal productivity. And got me pretty hooked on this like business books and self-development books. So
what kind of tactics did it teach you?
Like the whole idea of like collecting everything that's in your brain, write it down on a piece of paper, and then put it into a trusted system. It can be a to-do list, but something you trust. David Allen says your brain is not a storage device; it's a thinking device. Just always come like do this brain dump, put everything on a piece of paper, and then go through the list. Is this something I want to do? Is it something I want to do later? And put it in the right place so that your brain kind of like has this peace of mind knowing that everything is dealt with at some point, and I can really focus on thinking. Another book that had a big impact is a little bit outdated these days, but I think still the idea of the lean startup was something that really resonated with us. Just this idea of find something that you can build, like create a hypothesis, create something that you can test this hypothesis with, and then start learning. I do think it's like so important, not just in business, but in everything in life. Just like start an experiment. As you did, like start running to the beach. See how it feels. If you want to do more of that, cool, do more of it. If you hate it, stop doing it. So Lean Startup is definitely one of the books. I really love Creativity Inc.
Yeah, I read that one. That's the one that pretty much changed the whole structure of my business. And we won our first award within a couple of months after I read that book and restructured.
It's so cool and I think full of lessons. Then Sapiens, I think is still the most influential book on me was Sapiens. Basically everything is a story. Like we as a society, We just believe in the few stories that we keep telling ourselves. And I think this also it translates very well for business, because also business is just a story. The culture is a story we tell ourselves. And as long as we believe in a story, we can work together. Yeah, just going back to the Warren Buffett one, I think he's such a fascinating character. He's not just an investor. I think he's probably one of the most sophisticated thinkers about business. So Warren Buffett is just I think a must read for everyone who's interested in either investing or in business.
Any last thoughts you want to give to listeners? Obviously, you went through pretty much your entire life. Any last thoughts you want to give?
Take this as inspiration, but find your own way. Find something that works for you, and always be true to yourself when it comes to that. And not tell yourself the story you have to be that way just because it seems to be the cool thing to do or someone else tells you to do that.
Yeah, I love it, and I think it's a great way to close. Thank you so much for coming on, and hope to see you on the next one as well.
Yeah, see you in Rotterdam.